mamona get nice. I know food and meso, I know food and tebe, I know kaya marigi. Kama kwetu tikomu, bwana kwetu tikomu kusasaire.
Kamba kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa paninyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa.
Right, 30 November 2021, and today I'm joined by my usual guest, Dr. Feddious Mutenheri. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Gambakwe. It's been a long time, and I want to greet your viewers this evening.
That's fantastic, and I'm so happy that our network is working today. The last time we were together, it wasn't so good.
Oh, that was deadly, man. That was deadly.
Okay, and you can see that we're all looking quite well, and you can see the big, massive weight loss that I have gone through, right?
If you've been gymming, I hope the Omicron hasn't caught up with you.
No, I'm going to explain what's been happening with me. It's actually a very big thing that's happening, but we'll talk about it. I'll probably give a health update very, very soon.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so firstly, I want to inform everybody that one of our guests, our regular guests, Pangana Mhlanga, lost his brother yesterday. He was struck by a car here in Johannesburg. So I'm very, very sorry to say that. So maybe it will be a while before he's back. So we're supposed to have a shoot, but his brother got struck by a car and he passed away. So my condolences to him. And yeah, that's very sad indeed. Then obviously, Doc, today let's keep it very, very short. Let's see how we can go through this. So firstly, I don't know if you saw the reporting this weekend from the Daily News.
Yeah, I've seen snippets of that.
Okay, so apparently Chamisa is willing to work under Mnangagwa in a GNU. So that was, I showed you the first snippet, right? Let me show you another one. Sorry about the banner. Let's remove the banner. Right, so those are two pieces of information coming from presidential spokesman George Charamba, who normally, when he says something, I take it quite seriously. What do you think about this? Chamisa is willing to work under ED in a GNU, and secondly, Chamisa has been sending proxies, so people to approach Mnangagwa to negotiate with him or to say, please talk to Chamisa. What do you say about that?
Gambakwe, thank you very much for that question. And yes, you know, in politics, they say nothing is impossible. You know, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, but only permanent interests. And without necessarily confirming the veracity of those statements, one cannot rule out what happens in the background. But from my you know, own analysis of George Charamba really invests in political banter, which sometimes borders only on scorn of opponents, and not necessarily on what can be the truth. He is one, of course, that normally gives us a view into the thinking of the regime without necessarily telling the truth about the opposite side. So when he talks, if those reports that you have just shown me are anything to go by, I wouldn't say Chamisa per se is desperate or to work with ED or to work under ED as those reports say. But you cannot rule out that there would be traffic between both sides to try and work out the situation in Zimbabwe, because it's an untenable situation, which for ZANU-PF itself knows that they cannot continue on that. They will bankrupt the country without the support of international organizations, without the support of bilateral partners, and without the support of IFIs, international financial institutions. They cannot survive in the long term. We saw under Mugabe that when they tried it from 1998, when the madness started, by 2005, the country had really been bankrupted and the regime could not operate. So definitely on the part of the regime, they cannot continue with this untenable, unsustainable political environment. On the other part, the MDC has had a clarion call for dialogue from day one, when they claimed that they had won the election and that election had been stolen. And it's not a secret that Nelson Chamisa has always said, I've asked, and as he always said, I've asked my brother to say, let's talk. And it is actually Mnangagwa who has not been forthcoming, except that what we have seen ever since then is the creation of what I can call a partisan platform in the form of Pollard, the political dialogue platform. So for me, that those statements that are in the press, okay, the press sensationalizes. George Charamba, his job, by the way, is to spin. He is a spin doctor for the regime, and when he says those things, we know that in as much as there might be 1% of the truth, 99% is basically spin to suit the regime objectives.
Yeah, Doc, I think I've heard you, but let us go to, I want to play a clip for you, and then I want us to take it from there. You remember this clip, we played it before. So let's go back to this clip.
We're prepared to talk to them. We're prepared to talk to them without any conditionality. So we haven't said Emerson Mnangagwa must cease to be president before we talk to them. We haven't said that. But having said that, we can't, no one can seduce us to make a lie and accept processes that we know were against our constitution. The coup of November 2017 and the election of 2018. We can't, that's fact, but that is not a roadblock to dialogue. We are ready for dialogue. We want dialogue with our friends and compatriots in ZANU-PF, because the people.
Right, that is Tendai Biti speaking. This was earlier this year. In fact, this was on 29 January when we uploaded this post. The MDC Alliance has been willing to talk to President Mnangagwa for a very, very long time. If you go to gambakwe.com and type dialogue in the search bar, you've got more than 100 stories where Chamisa is saying he wants to talk to Mnangagwa, he's got conditions and so forth. But President Mnangagwa has been consistent to say that I won't talk to you except if you come to Poland. Why are these two failing to agree? If one is a position, who has to move first?
Okay, thank you very much, Gambakwe, for that question, and I will ask you to indulge me a little to try and probably unpack that question. There is no doubt, Gambakwe, that in Zimbabwe today, dialogue is one of the key, and I have to underline that it is one of the key factors to unlocking the quagmire or the crisis that Zimbabwe finds itself in. That is the first thing that I want to underline. But there are many other things. An election, a free and fair election, is another a key that will unlock it. But I want us to go back to our question of dialogue. Now, having underlined that dialogue is important in Zimbabwe, what is the purpose of dialogue in Zimbabwe? Right. We have seen that the various dialogues, the historical dialogues that have happened in Zimbabwe, have achieved quite milestones. Firstly, let's talk about, let me take you to the closest one, which is the Lancaster House, 1979, 1980 Lancaster House, which gave birth to Zimbabwe itself. You know, the two protagonists, that was the Rhodesian Front and ZANU and the PF, the Patriotic Front. They were locked in a guerrilla warfare, and at Lancaster, a dialogue, you know, gave birth to the present-day Zimbabwe. Move forward again, from 1980 till 1987, there was a serious internal ruckus between ZAPU and ZANU, and as we know now, more than 20,000, according to report, 20,000 Zimbabweans, especially in Matabeleland, were massacred. And it was only a dialogue that gave birth to what now became known as the Unity Accord, when ZANU-PF and ZAPU came together. Fast track forward, when the movement for democratic change was formed, there was a lot of political violence, a lot of killings happened, political you know, killings. And to 2008, 2009, we saw the global political agreement between Morgan Tsvangirai and Robert Mugabe. That was dialogue. What did it yield? It yielded a government of national unity. So I am giving you this historical background to show you that in Zimbabwe, we can't run away from dialogue. That dialogue is what has given a sort of respite to the suffering Zimbabweans. Now, having said that, you asked me a question: why is Mnangagwa therefore refusing to talk to Chamisa? I want us to, having looked at the importance of dialogue, I want us to look at ZANU-PF itself and its view to dialogue. Right. Probably give me, like I said, Gambako, you will indulge me. I want to highlight probably 4 or 5 points. The first one being that the thinking in ZANU-PF when you talk of dialogue is that dialogue is meant, and at this particular time, to give birth to reforms, political reforms, electoral reforms, economic reforms, or reforms that will give in a democratic dispensation which will allow for free competition between political parties. But what is the thinking within ZANU-PF? That thinking, we can derive it from what Jonathan Moyo said on the 2nd of September of 2016. Jonathan Moyo said, when MDC was asking for dialogue, said, I'm paraphrasing, that how do they expect us to reform ourselves out of power? Because, you know, according to them, any dialogue that is to come, its result or its objective is supposed to give reforms, you know, light or light of day. And for them, according to that Jonathan Moyo statement, it is that when they reform, what they are basically doing is that they are giving away whatever privilege they have today. They are giving away their turf where they fight better. You know, ZANU-PF, when they are where they are today, they are like fish in water. So when you go for a dialogue, it's like you're pulling them out of water and they die, because they only thrive within this environment in which they can continue to inflict violence on their opponents. And so Jonathan Moyo's statement is the deep thinking today in ZANU-PF that whatever dialogue would come out, it is meant to reform. And if they were to give in to reform, it means that they are reforming themselves to power. That's point number one I wanted to make. But the point number two, which is a very important point, for ZANU-PF, politics in general, and dialogue in particular, it's a zero-sum game. For political pundits, they will know what is called the game theory. The game theory, basically, it has got many facets to it, in which you have what you can call finite players and infinite players. When you talk of finite players, there are those players who have got, they've got known players, and in that there are known rules which are played, rules which are set for everybody, and there are objectives and objectives that you achieve. But also in that theory, there are what are called infinite. There's an infinite game in which the players are known and unknown, and also the rules are changeable, and they can be changed by those that can go all the way. And again, the objectives are only set by those who are in power. So look, between ZANU-PF and MDC, if you like, MDC is like a finite player, whereas ZANU-PF is an infinite player. What do I mean by that? I mean that for MDC, their intention is to win Zimbabwe for change. But for ZANU-PF is to remain in power at all costs. Now, that is the rule. But for them, they go down to what is now called the zero-sum game. So for ZANU-PF, it is as long as they benefit at the expense of the loss, either of MDC or of the Zimbabwean population, they don't care. So for them, the difference between their gain and their loss is a zero-sum game. So they don't care. So that's where they are coming from. I could expand more on the zero-sum game. So for ZANU-PF, I'll tell you that getting into a dialogue, it's a zero-sum game. They should benefit at all cost. You know, when you want to benefit at all cost, it means that you do anything and everything to make sure that the opponent loses. That's why in Zimbabwe, you have abductions going on a daily basis, and you wonder, where are the police? You see demonstrations being banned, you know, with impunity, and you wonder what is happening. It's like a drama. You see even opposition leaders being banned from carrying out their political activities. So for ZANU-PF, it's a zero-sum game. It's a game. Now, that's point number two. Point number three, you must understand that there are dynamics within ZANU-PF, factional dynamics. So how do they work? Those factions, at the present moment, we know that there is the reported Chiwenga faction and the reported Mnangagwa faction. There are always hard lines in ZANU-PF. They are the moderates. So a dialogue for them, it means that whoever gives into dialogue, the other faction would see itself as losing traction, as losing its opportunity at the levers of power within ZANU-PF and by extension within the state. So those dynamics will obviously hinder a dialogue, and that's why Mnangagwa will clearly not want a dialogue with let me finish with the two. That's why I said please indulge me, and then you can ask me other questions. Then the fourth, rather the third. Am I on the third or the fourth? The fourth point I want to raise is that there is that misguided, I call it a misguided sense of entitlement to the country, to the leadership of the country by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF, by virtue that most of their cadres fought in the liberation struggle, and by their own words that they liberated it where it when it was colonized. So they have the right. They have the right to lead it. That misguided sense, it therefore gives rise to that view to MDC as Vavakure, as if these are not, they don't have the right to rule. They do not have the right even. So why dialogue with such people? In fact, according to them, why dialogue with puppets? They use all those derogatory words. So that is a huge hindrance to dialogue by ZANU-PF. And lastly, probably, so that I give you an opportunity also to intervene, I think it is the MDC's stated position, because MDC has got a clearly stated position that they will not come to the table, to the Pollard or whatever table, as long as there is no neutral arbitrator or referee to arbitrate between the two. And for ZANU-PF, they found a leeway to say, therefore, we are not talking to you. They therefore created an extension of an illegitimate platform in Pollard, and Pollard, by all intents and purposes, has no impact whatsoever in the body politic of Zimbabwe, except as a tool to ward off any opposition from the MDC alliance. So the fact that MDC alliance has got that stated position that we are not coming to that table as long as there is no neutral referee, it is giving ZANU-PF that leeway to say, we are therefore not going to talk to you. And I hope by those 5 aspects that I have highlighted, they clearly answer why Emmerson Mnangagwa today is not willing to come to the table to talk to Chamisa.
Okay, let me play this short clip. I don't want to say a lot. I want a clever person to say something, and then we can ask a question again.
Nelson called me in the other day. I hadn't seen him for about 18 months. He called me and asked me, what did I think he should be doing? I said, you should be talking to Mnangagwa. So he said, how do we get that dialogue started? Well, the first thing is you got to accept that he won the 2018 election. End of conversation. If you don't accept that the president is legitimate and he won the election legitimately, then you can't start a conversation. And that's the position. And nothing's going to change that. And no amount of external pressure is going to change that situation. That is something we have to do amongst ourselves.
Right, Doctor, did you hear a smart person speaking? Eddie Cross is one of the smartest people in Zimbabwe. What do you think about what he just said?
First and foremost, I want to really question your position on why you would call Eddie Cross smart, as it were. I listened some few weeks back to his conversation, with Trevor Ncube on one of his programs. I should say I was very disappointed by this gentleman. Eddie Cross, he has become an embodiment of how those that used to look to oppositions towards, how the general Zimbabweans used to look at such people with hope that they are going to serve this country, and they get swallowed by what? Swallowed by the need to be part and parcel of those that are eating the major part of the cake. Eddie Cross cannot be trusted today. Eddie Cross he cannot be today a voice that people can listen to and say we can trust. So when he talks about advising Nelson Chamisa that accept that he's the legitimate president, and when you do that, then probably something would come up. Definitely, he is dishonest. Here is a person who was there at the formation of the movement for democratic change itself, and he has clearly said in that interview I told you that ever since the leaving of the stage of Morgan Tsvangirai, he thinks that Nelson Chamisa is not capable of leading, and you can tell a racist kind of arrogance in him. In that he thinks that there is no craft competency, there is no economic competency in Nelson Chamisa and those in the MTC today. And in that interview again, he shows how he has dabbled in politics between these two parties, for me, which makes him a spy. And God alone knows who spy is. So when you tell me that he's a smart man talking today, I don't agree. I don't know who this man is today, because he is the advisor to the current regime, which he fought for the past 2 decades. What has changed? What has changed for him, if not that he has now found himself on the other side and he's eating with them, and now he has got the guts to say, I told Nelson Chamisa to say, accept the legitimacy. The 2018 election is contested not because Eddie Cross says accept. It is contested because of the evidence of the rigging that occurred, because of the evidence which, whether the court accepted or not, is there to show that there is a lot of rigging that happened. Today there is Chegutu West constituents, which still shows us that there was a lot of rigging that occurred, because the current MP that is there is not the guy that won, even according to ZEC. So what is Eddie Cross talking about? What Eddie Cross is talking about is...
I want to stop you, because I want to take you to the next clip, and then I want us to wrap up the discussion. So here is Chamisa himself. He is talking to my brother, Zenzele Ndebele. So let's listen to what Chamisa says. Apologies for the delay. I don't know what's happening.
Our view was that dialogue is the only solution for our country, because we need to give peace a chance.
The volume, Gambakwe, the volume is quite very low of that clip. Can you try to...
What is clear is that Mr. Mnangagwa has not been available for dialogue. He committed himself through President Mbeki, but up to date, he has not been available for dialogue. So I suppose...
Okay, I'm sorry about the volume, but I think you heard him. He's saying President Mnangagwa has not been available for dialogue. He committed himself through President Mbeki, and he has not been available for dialogue. That's what Chamisa is saying. Let us go back to what Eddie Cross was saying. Eddie is saying Chamisa can never be able to talk to President Mnangagwa before he stands up in front of the whole country and says he accepts the election results of 2018. I don't think that is racist. I don't think that is... That's a statement of fact, in fact. Don't you think that that is where Chamisa is missing this point?
But Gambakwe, in my initial, not even initial, but in the 5 points that I gave you, I think that question is clearly answered, that whereas Eddie Cross has become part and parcel of the regime as an advisor, he speaks for the Zimbabwe government today. And the 5 points I gave you are actually the reasons or why ZANU-PF does not want a dialogue That's why they would always call on Chamisa to stand in front of the whole country and just say, who is Chamisa anyway, that they want only Chamisa to stand and say, you are legitimate, if they are legitimate. In other words, they know that he is a key player in the Zimbabwean body politic, in solving today's crisis. They know. But what is stopping them from making a move themselves? The 5 points I gave you, that they do not want to reform. That's one point you must understand. They would not want to reform because if Nelson Chamisa says you are president, then what? You think when he says that, okay, President Mnangagwa is legitimate, then ZANU-PF will wake up as a democratic party? No. I told you that for ZANU-PF it's a game, zero-sum game. As long as they win, MDC loses, and they are going to make the whole fight expensive for the MDC. If MDC think they will win it, ZANU-PF will make this whole struggle expensive as long as they win, whether the Zimbabweans lose or suffer. I told you, and I said that they already have the sense of entitlement. That's why what Mnangagwa only wants is for Chamisa to come out and say, you are the president. Chamisa is just one person, but they know that he has got 2.6 million voters on his back, according to their figures, and according to ZEC figures, 2.1 million. And they know that he has got a following. And I told you that the factions within ZANU-PF, they would not even allow Mnangagwa himself to come to the table without themselves losing, and so that is the point. And when Eddie Cross says that, when Eddie Cross says that, so when Eddie Cross says that, when Eddie Cross said, I want you to answer me as well. When Eddie Cross says that, what is going to change? You think ZANU-PF will change simply because Nelson Chamisa has come out on a high platform in front of the whole world and say President Mnangagwa is now the legitimate president? Then ZANU-PF will change. Then you are naive. Then Eddie Cross is naive.
Let's go to this next clip, Doc, and then, because remember what I'm trying to do here. Chamisa is the one who is approaching all these people. Eddie Cross was approached by Chamisa. It's not Eddie Cross who went to Chamisa. So Chamisa wants the solution. It's not the other way around. So let's go to this clip and then I show you again what he said in 2020.
That's what we need in Zimbabwe to resolve our crisis is real change. What we need is a national consensus, a national convergence by all progressive forces, by all citizens, to be able to then say, what is it that we're going to do to return our country to legitimacy and democracy, to openness, to accountability? We must bring sanity to our politics, dignity to our politics, integrity to our politics. Politics must be a place where we celebrate accountability, where we celebrate the supremacy of our citizens, the supremacy of Zimbabweans. And to be able to do that, we need a 5-step solution. The first one is an agreement on the articulation of what the nature of the crisis is. Ours is clear. The nature of the crisis is that it is a governance crisis. It is a political crisis, a legitimate crisis. In order to resolve it, we need the second step, which is an ability to address the comprehensive reforms that we need. Electoral reforms, political reforms, constitutional reforms, institutional reforms, so that we are able to move, including economic reforms, to move our country forward. The third issue is then to be able to say what vehicle is going to transition our country from our current circumstances of a stalemate, from our current circumstances of an economic meltdown, unemployment, corruption, to move it to a new dispensation in real terms, where Zimbabwe is in business and indeed open for business. At the moment, to be able to do that, we need a transitional mechanism, which is an...
Right. I want to stop here, Doc, on the clip that I'm sharing. And I want to show you why it's problematic, what Nelson Chamisa wants. In 2020, Chamisa wanted Mnangagwa to step down and for a transitional arrangement to be put in place. He called the South Africans who came to Zimbabwe with that demand. And President Mnangagwa explained to them that the platform was Poland. So this is where the difference lies. On President Mnangagwa's side, he's saying he's got Poland to address all the issues that Chamisa says he wants to address. On Chamisa's side, he says he wants Mnangagwa to step down and for a transitional arrangement to be put in place. Don't you see what Eddie Cross is saying makes sense if you put it in this context?
I think, Gambako, we are circling in one, we are just making a circle here. What you are saying and what in that clip you have just said before you even played is what I told you. If you listen carefully to what I said, it is that ZANU-PF is not up for this thing, this whole thing of a dialogue that will bring a democratic dispensation. Look, let me just take you back to 2017 anyway. 2017, when we saw the uniformed men on television, what did they say? They said their role was to restore legacy. What does it mean to restore legacy? It's to restore a previous status quo. But no sooner had they said that, did they say, we are introducing a new dispensation. What a contradiction. You can see that that state started from a contradiction itself, that wanted to restore legacy and they wanted to create a new dispensation. That is a paradox. That is an irony. That is a contradiction that they started with. 1, 2. So the first 3 years, in fact, let me just say the first 1 year of that so-called new dispensation tried to feign what you could say a democratic dispensation, where we saw Chamisa campaigning and doing all those stuff, and no sooner had the election been done did we see them coming back to their real colors. 1st August, we saw the gunning down of protesters. In January, we saw the same thing happening. Before we knew it, the abductions, the human rights abuses continued unabated with impunity. And that is the real ZANU-PF you are dealing with. What is Eddie Cross saying? Does he really think, okay, let's go back to the 2009 GNU, in which Morgan Tsvangirai and Mugabe had a GNU. Did ZANU-PF change? Or ZANU-PF actually showed how deceptive they were? Even as much as everybody agrees that that is the point at which Zimbabweans had a respite, Zimbabweans had a better life, but nothing changed. What is Eddie Cross saying? He must probably say this more clearly, to say, if Chamisa clearly says Mnangagwa is legitimate, Zimbabwe would be free, then we will hear that. That is nonsense. What Eddie Cross is saying is nonsense. The 5 points I told you are the reasons why ZANU-PF today will not go to a dialogue, and they are not willing to go to that dialogue. And probably our question today would be, how do we unlock that situation so that we bring ZANU-PF screaming to the table to dialogue? Because all what Nelson Chamisa is saying, from all the clips you have shown me, from day one, Nelson Chamisa has been calling for dialogue, for a neutral dialogue, for a dialogue that is arbitrated by someone who is neutral, who is, like, for instance, he was talking of Mbeki, that he even, Mnangagwa, even President Mnangagwa, even told or promised President Mbeki that he would want that dialogue, but he has not come to that. Nelson Chamisa has consistently, even in Tendai Bit's clip, he clearly said, there are no conditionalities even from our side. We want dialogue, but as long as that dialogue is arbitrated by someone who is neutral, so that that very person or that country or that organization can underwrite whatever is agreed. Otherwise, anything that what Eddie Cross are saying, these things are just rubbish. Because if today Nelson Chamisa wakes up and say President Mnangagwa is legitimate, is that going to bring bread to the people's tables? Is that going to stop human rights abuses? Is that going to stop? Is that going to give us a reformed electoral field? Is that going to give us an economic situation that that can give people of Zimbabwe relief? It's nothing. That is politicking. I said Eddie Cross has crossed over to the other side. And listen, in politics, I already said this. Negotiations or talks, whether you say it's Chamisa who started or whoever started, these barbs will always be there as to who started, who did. It happened between ZANU-PF and the Rhodesian Front. It happened between ZAPU and ZANU-PF. It happened between MDC-T and ZANU-PF. Why should it not happen between MDC Alliance and this Lacoste ZANU-PF? It's happening. But the bottom line is, where is it going to take us to? So for me, if you ask me, Chamisa makes more sense, because what he is saying is giving a roadmap to say, what is the kind of dialogue that we want? What is it going to achieve? Which ZANU-PF under Mnangagwa is today refusing. So don't throw a Cross in my face, because like I said, I think he is confused. I think he's senile. He is now a senile old man who has lost his mind.
Okay, that is where I want us to go, Doc. That dialogue is a process that has got a foundation of respect. And I've learned this the hard way myself. If you don't respect other parties or other people, you cannot get what you want. If you want to get what you want, you have to be willing to hear them out. You have to be willing to submit. For example, Chamisa right now, he has been in the opposition since 2018. We have passed the halfway mark to the next elections. He has not achieved anything of what he wanted to achieve, either through demonstrations, through pressure, international pressure, and so forth. And I think that is where the mistake is being made, that he is disrespecting the parties that he wants to dialogue with. I don't know if you see the point that I'm trying to make here. That, for example, if I was to go to Chamisa and I insult him, he is most unlikely to want to talk to me. Similarly, if Chamisa was to call President Mnangagwa illegitimate, the regime, all these words that they use, then President Mnangagwa won't be willing to work and talk to him. Whereas if they talk to him properly, maybe they could achieve more. What do you think?
Firstly, okay, I want to debunk some of the the statements you make. Anyway, probably you wanted to say Nelson Chamisa has been the president of the opposition since 2018. He has been there since 1999 anyway. In fact, before that, in the student movement, 1-2. The narrative you are pushing right now is a seriously dangerous and dangerously patriarchal narrative, in which we have to view the current president as a patriarch who at all costs has to be respected. Remember, we have said we are a democratic dispensation. In fact, by definition, our country is a constitutional democracy. What is a constitutional democracy? A constitutional democracy is when there is freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Everyone has got the right to name call within the political parameters. But listen, what respect do you expect the opposition to give to ZANU-PF, which ZANU-PF has given to them? Okay, what kind of respect What do you want them to do? What you are advocating is that they should come begging to them. Let me tell you, negotiations, actually, to debunk what you have said, are not all about respect. It's about positions. It's about the positions that you take. MDC is coming to the table with its electorate that gave confidence to them to say, you be our leaders. ZANU-PF knows that they are the major competitors. They are likely to lose at their hands. And so dialogue, what you hear in the public domain, in the public space, is not the reality of negotiations. These are political statements. Let me give you an example. You think when de Klerk and Nelson Mandela finally came to the table, it was about Nelson Mandela respecting de Klerk? No, it wasn't. Do you think when Robert Mugabe, Joshua Nkomo, and the other founding fathers, when they came to the table with Ian Douglas Smith, it was because Robert Mugabe was respecting Ian Douglas Smith? No. At one press conference, Robert Mugabe, I remember him throwing a whole paper that has been brought from the Rhodesian Front and saying it's nonsense. Because it was. And you know what Robert Mugabe did? He said, we will continue to execute the liberation struggle until these white racists understand the language of our struggle. This is a struggle for democracy. Don't tell Nelson Chamisa to come begging and not tell ZANU-PF not to give in. A negotiation, therefore, becomes a give and take. What do you have to give so that you take something? And I'm sure the MDC, by clearly saying every day that we are ready for a dialogue, they are ready to give something. As long as ZANU-PF is ready to give something. So look, for a long time, we have let ZANU-PF dictate the pace of any negotiation. ZANU-PF dictate how dialogue should happen in Zimbabwe. That's not how it's supposed to be. I think, in all fairness, Nelson Chamisa has done well. And you say he has achieved nothing from 2018. No. 2019, COVID settled us. By 2020, they were hamstrung by various things. Firstly, by the restrictions which came covered by COVID. Two, by the COVID judgment, which clearly annihilated their party, which left them without a president. Look at me, constitutionally. Fast forward, we saw the recalling of all the MPs and basically the annihilation of what we knew as the MDC alliance voted for in 2018. So when one brings a comment like you bring Gambagwe to say he has done nothing, I honestly look at you and wonder, really? Really? Is that how we are supposed to view the politics of Zimbabwe? I think we need to get to a level of objectivity that looks at what ZANU-PF has done wrong and probably what MDC as well needs to do in order for them to meet. And in my fifth point, I said, it is only the MDC's stated point that we are not coming to the table where there is no neutral arbitrator. But probably one could ask, would you falter them for that? Even if you, Gambagwe, let me give you an example. Say, for instance, you are in a dispute with your in-laws, with your wife, let's say with your wife, and it's a serious dispute. And your wife says, no, the arbitrator is going to be my brother. What are you going to say? You are seriously in a dispute. You are going to say, okay, let's go to your brother. No, you clearly tell your wife that probably let's find somebody else. That is the, let's be objective when we look at these things.
Okay. I think, Doc, you have articulated the current position of the MDC Alliance. very, very clearly. And myself, I've been following this issue or dispute that Chamisa believes that he's got since 2018. So before Chamisa became MDC president, already there were issues. So we've been following this, and I'm sure you can go to gambakwe.com and see every week we've been following as this issue develops. So I think let's bring this to an end here at this particular point. Chamisa has been approaching President Mnangagwa, looking for a GNU. He's willing to work under President Mnangagwa in a GNU, according to the spokesperson, presidential spokesperson, and according to this article here, which was in the Daily News on Sunday. So if you wanna read this, you have to subscribe to the Daily News on Sunday. I will put the link in the post. I want to give you an update on this dialogue. It's not only Chamisa who is failing to meet with President Mnangagwa, it's also the MDCT of Douglas Ngonzora. They have been failing to meet or to get into Poland. And
but before you go to that update, I think that statement you just said, firstly, I don't believe that I have said any position of the MDC. I've told you that I'm not a spokesperson of the MDC. I know your sarcasm though, but I shouldn't. I should not say I'm speaking the position of the MDC, but I am just analyzing the situation as it is, and surely to say that it is the MDC also that is failing in this instance is to be seriously unfair.
Okay, but Chamisa has been begging to meet President Mnangagwa for a long time.
Actually, the point that I wanted to say is that you cannot, let's not parrot what Charamba is saying. I've told you that Charamba is known as the spin doctor for the government. He even on Twitter uses Jamwanda as his pet name, in which he throws banter and all sorts of political untruths and banter and you name it. And the Daily News the Daily News headline you are giving us cannot be the alpha and omega of the news. So to say that Chamisa has been begging and us parroting it right here, I think it's very unfair. Or to say Chamisa is desperate to work under ED in a GNU, it's obviously a sensational and untruth which cannot be verified. If you made an effort to ask, say, Mahere or Ostalos to say, is this the real position of the MDC or not? So let's not parrot it. That's sensationalism, which you guys in the media.
Let me respond to you, Doctor. Let me respond to you. Ostalos, I tried to get hold of him this week, and he was unfortunately in the villages. And it makes me laugh because when I talk to him general things, he responds. But in this particular instance, when I wanted to really ask him an important question, he did not respond. The MDC Alliance Communication Department is dead. Between Ostalos and Fadzai Mahere, they're incapable of communicating. When this story came out on Sunday, they failed to respond to it. They don't have to respond to Gambakwe on Tuesday or Wednesday. They should have done it their own response without me having to ask them. They did not respond because there is no coherent communication strategy within the MDC Alliance. Unfortunately, I think Ostalos would do better as the spokesperson of the MDC Alliance, but at the moment he's not there in that position. So I did try. I WhatsApped him, and I would have wanted to have him here. I'm gonna make an attempt to bring him next time so that we can talk.
Please do.
The biggest problem we have, Doctor, is the MDC Alliance is not a proper political party. It doesn't have all the structures. For example, sometimes the spokespersons, it seems like they don't have airtime. It's not only the MDC Alliance. I deal with a lot of political parties where the spokespersons cannot buy enough data bundles to talk to me. Don't take this as a joke. It's a very serious issue.
Gambakwe, you talk of the MDC in Zimbabwe as if, as an opposition, as if it's an opposition that exists in the United States of America or in Europe. It's an opposition in Zimbabwe. And we all know what the economic crisis Zimbabwe is facing. And do not try to project the MDC as an elite political party. It is a party, as far as I know, funded by its own people. And as I think by saying that they do not have airtime, or by saying that they do not have data bundles, you are speaking for them. You are just showing how they are a representative of the general people, hamstrung by the crisis that is burning that country. And so when you say that, don't think you are speaking against them. In fact, you are clearly showing that they are trying under the very worst of conditions to survive. And that they have survived to this date, it shows us that it is an idea, basically, not just represented by one person, by Nelson Chamisa and other people in there, but probably by a huge majority of Zimbabweans who see it as a hope for a change of government and probably for a change of how things are done in the country. So when you attack them for their failures, just know that on the contrary or on the opposite is ZANU-PF, which is oiled by the state machinery, which is conflated between the state itself and the party, and therefore you can never tell when the party is having its functions or when the state where we all belong is. So remember that when you say some things, you are actually saying something good for the MDC, because the MDC is operating under a very difficult environment.
No, true. I agree with you. I'm just answering your question of whether I tried to talk to Ostalos or not. Mutenheri, I don't even try to talk to her. She's too high up for me.
Okay, fine. Let's not go to those two. I want you to keep on trying in the background to get a hold of one of them. I'm sure Ostalos would want to get a hold of you.
No, Ostalos is a smart young man. I think he will do a much better job as the spokesperson.
No. Don't pit the two. Don't pit the two into a fight. You are already trying something. Don't pit. I think they are working very well. They are very good, orators, speakers. They articulate, the positions of that party very, very well. I think they are young again. They appeal to the young people, and both of them, one, a very, very an advocate, a lawyer with such knowledge, and another one, a young Pan-African, political scientist. You can see the way he exudes, confidence when he speaks about the political economy of Zimbabwe. I love the way he speaks. And these are brains that Zimbabwe is blessed with. And I wish ZANU-PF should look at them and realize that these are young people that are from Zimbabwe who can contribute to the development of that country.
Okay, we do agree, Doc. And I really appreciate Ostalos. I was with Ostalos here when I was in Johannesburg. We spent about an hour together. He's a very nice young man. And as I said, I'm not pitting him against Mutenheri, but in terms of efforts and what he's doing a great job. And I hope that one day he gets appointed the spokesperson of the MDC Alliance. Also,
Don't say that. That's why I'm saying, you are, on one hand, you are refusing that, you are pitting the two. On the other hand, you are campaigning for the other. Gambakwe, you have got that tongue-in-cheek talk, you know that. Anyway, I'm sure I'm done on that.
Okay, fantastic, Doc. is there anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I just want to revert back to the point of the dialogue we're talking about, that Zimbabwe really needs dialogue. Zimbabwe needs dialogue probably at family level, because families, because of the crisis, have been ravaged. We need dialogue at church levels. I've seen churches in which people come with guns to shoot factions of churches, or they beat each other in churches. We need dialogue. And without dialogue, where are we going? We need dialogue within organizations, within companies. We need organizations within our politics. We need dialogue. Dialogue to achieve what? To reach out to each other, to be able to tolerate each other's views, to be able to set rules in which we can all operate freely, and let the best go forward. And in our country, particularly within these two major political parties, there is definitely need for that dialogue. And that dialogue, one thing I like is that the MDC has even said it's not only us as MDC, but a broad band of the society of Zimbabwe, which includes the church, the civic society, and everything. So we need dialogue at various facets. I had already also left the civic society. It needs dialogue. Recently, I've been seeing the ZCTU. There was a lot happening there, and I thought we need dialogue. So, as you know, they always say fish rots from the head. This is exactly what the country is going through. Unless the head from our state president starts to realize that there is need to initiate dialogue within Zimbabwe on various facets, we may not move forward. And therefore, today's discussion, Gambakwe, it was actually very important, and I want to thank you that in our little way, we can today state that Zimbabwe needs dialogue at every level of our society, every level, but more so at the political level, which is at the heart of decision making for the betterment of all Zimbabweans. Thank you very much, Gambakwe, for having me tonight.
Thank you, Doctor. And I'm going to be in Zimbabwe very, very soon. I'm going to personally hunt down Fadzai and Ostalos and have interviews with them and have coffee. So if Fadzai sees this, get ready to have coffee with me.
I would love that. I would love that. And hopefully I could join you in one of those coffees when you guys meet.
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Doctor. And tomorrow we'll be back here. We'll be talking about the death of Zida CEO, Mr. Douglas Munansi, who died in his flat. We want to unpack what happened there and the official positions, the theories, and the conspiracies. So we're going to look at that tomorrow. Thank you very much, Doctor.
It's actually a very sad, when I heard about it, it's a very sad day. And, you know, he's one person we were always seeing either on television because of his achievements in the financial sector. And for me to hear that, it was like, wow, what a sad loss.
It's very sad, Doctor. And let's hope that we get as much information as possible by tomorrow, and then we'll be able to give everyone information. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Kambakwe.
Anovura meso, anovura nzeve,